Because honestly, like, I have no idea what the hell is happening. Hello, hello. If you can hear me, let me know in the chat. Hi, Mendon. Hi, Fearless. Hi, good to see you here. Hi, Alex. Nice to see you again. Nice to see you too. Nice to see you too. Can you hear me? Because I've been trying this a couple of times and I had a problem with the audio, so my microphone is not coming through. Let me know in the chat if you can hear me, so we can start if everything's in order. I can hear you now. Oh, that's great. That's great. Big apologies for the technical difficulties here. Shit happens. I've wasted like 17 minutes trying to fix the audio. Anyway, let's start with some quick updates and what's going on. And I've been kind of on and off away from YouTube because I've been moving, and I'm in my new apartment right now, and it's pretty bright here. It's much brighter on the camera than it is here. Here, as I see it, it's not that bright, but it looks like I'm being taken by a bright light, kidnapped by aliens. Wheel. I'm sorry, I'm way too easily amused. So, I moved out of a mouse infected house, and I haven't actually talked about it, but the last place I lived at, it was an old house that had a mice problem. And every single winter, it always was an issue because when I was at home, it was fine, but whenever I would leave, I go somewhere for a week or two or even three, I would come back and find lots of mice droppings everywhere. And I tried so many different things. I killed so many mice in those 3 years that I lived there that I'm practically a serial killer now. But they just kept coming back, and I was so sick of that. And I knew that, oh my god, I have to really, really get out of that place. And that's how I ended up here. And I already feel at home here, honestly. I think it's a pretty good place. Honestly, it's probably the best place I have lived at since I moved out of my parents' place 12 years ago. 12 years ago? Yeah, it was 12 years ago. So it's great to be back doing YouTube and writing, because I haven't been writing for like a whole month or more because I was largely busy with moving and cleaning. And an issue was that when I moved in here, there was a smell of curry. And some of you may know from a short I made on YouTube recently. But the cupboards smelled really, really badly of curry, and smell was spreading all over this new apartment. So I went from fighting mice to fighting the curry smell. But you know what? I'll take curry over mice. And it was a temporary problem. I fixed that using regular cleaning methods, as well as the coffee that absorbs that kind of smell and things like that. Jackson Moore says, I am sorry to hear about your apartment. Yeah, well, everything's fine now, so that's good. The Antique Little Girl, it's nice to see you back. It's always nice to see you. Says, I have a question. Do you see a relationship between AI and philosophy? Yes, definitely. And a lot of contemporary philosophy focuses on AI. There's actually a lot of papers and research on in that particular field that is very, very closely related to philosophy, and philosophy takes direct interest in it, both in terms of how does AI affect. Also, you could say the very basic question of consciousness. And if you think of consciousness as sort of a quality that exists in a universe that certain beings possess, and on this planet, at least, most of that consciousness is accumulated, or that mental capability of pushing progress is accommodated in humans, right? But if AI can, without that conscious element, stimulate all that, or simulate, then the question arises, is consciousness even a necessary thing in the universe if the progress can be done without it? As if non-conscious machines or AI take over that role of creating progress. Um, Jacksonmore asks, "Are you still anarcho-transhumanist?" Yes, I would say that. I think it describes my views. My views on that has largely remained the same in the last few years. I mean, of course, there's always something evolving there, but yeah, I don't see that changing anytime soon, to be honest. But I'm an open-minded person, so you never know. But also I like to keep grounded, because I think there's a balance between being open-minded to the ideas and uh, but also not to go as far as to being swayed by every idea you're presented by, like, oh, you move here, you move there. I like to be grounded but open-minded. Now, the second little update I have to share is regarding the book. And some of you already know that if you're following me on Patreon, because we have talked about it on Patreon, but I can also share it with the rest of you. I have been in contact with a publisher, and yeah, she was interested in my work, in my book. I think that's great. At the same time, I also had to decline the offer because she wanted my book to move more towards this kind of theoretical nonfiction. So she just didn't want a memoir, basically. And that didn't exactly sit right with me. And I mean, it's great if that's what they want, but I don't think I'm the right person for that particular publisher or for that particular press, because my book is a combination of narrative nonfiction. It's just memoir with elements of creative nonfiction, but it also contains elements of analytical philosophy and more theoretical territory on the subject of identity, gender, and detransition. And because I want to combine these two elements into one, it may be difficult to find a publisher or a press that is open to that kind of thing, because it is an experimental work. But I'm not giving up. I am still on track with that. I'm going to publish it one way or another, and if I really incapable of finding anyone who would be open to that, I would consider publishing it independently. Although I would definitely prefer being published by a press, because there are some advantages, benefits to that, really. But there are many different options. But I hope I can find someone who will accept this work as it is, or at least doesn't want to make such major changes to that. But still, the fact that she would otherwise be open to publish that, I think that's a great compliment, and that told me that, oh, I actually produced something that is worth publishing. That's a great compliment anyway. So no, I'm not giving up. Publishing is a long process. You have to knock on many doors, and sometimes you're not going to be invited in, or sometimes, yes, they want you to come in, but they want you to be different than the way you actually are. And I don't really want to change my work that much. in a way that isn't compatible with how I see it, because it's sort of my vision at the end of the day, right? Now, the third major update, I actually had my blood test done for the first time in 8 years. And as some of you know, I can be rather anxious about going to the doctor or things like that. I hate clinics, hospitals, but I did it this Thursday actually. And yes, it wasn't easy. I was having a panic attack, but I pushed it through. And it's partially the medical trauma from the surgery that makes me so uncomfortable with going to the doctor or to the lab or something like that, get my blood drawn. But it's also the fact that these nurses, they also take control over you, touch you, and I hate it when somebody takes control over my body. I hate it when I feel like I'm not in control, you know. And unfortunately, um, when you want to get anything done uh, at the doctors or with the nurses, yeah, you have to let them touch you. You have to let them take control over you, and that's very uncomfortable. But I pushed myself through that, and I'm waiting for my results. And the reason why I'm getting my blood checked is largely because I haven't done that in 8 years, and I think it's good for my health to know what the hell's going on with me. And second of all, I am considering drum roll. I am considering going back on estrogen, and I can already imagine some people saying, "Oh my God, Alexander, are you retransitioning?" No, I'm not retransitioning. I'm still Alexander. I am not Jennifer. I'm not Rachel. I'm not Lolita. I'm the good old Alexander. Nothing has changed, but I'm gonna be taking very small doses of estrogen for my bone health, because I have osteopenia, which is the state of being in the pre-osteoporosis state. So I'm at higher risk of developing osteoporosis, and I would rather want to avoid that. And as I said earlier, there is no perfect option, because no matter whether I'm on no hormones at all, if I had bottom surgery, or if I've been taking testosterone or estrogen, it all comes with some unwanted side effects, some unwanted health problems. But because I'll be technically microdosing estrogen, first and foremost, those risks are very small. And second of all, such small doses won't really make any significant changes to my body. And why estrogen and not testosterone? First and foremost, synthetic testosterone is actually worse for your body than estrogen, so estrogen seems like a healthier choice. Otherwise, microdoses of estrogen or microdoses of testosterone again are so small that they're just good for your bones, but they don't really make any changes to the way I would look. So technically, it doesn't really make much difference to me. It's purely based on the choice that I think it's a better option health wise. Okay, let me see some of the comments here. Do you still like Norway? Norway is pretty. Yeah, I do like Norway. I think it's great to live here. For a while, I wanted to move to UK actually, and I'm still thinking about it sometimes. But I also think that the situation in UK right now is not perfect. And second of all, I also have my family here, and I like having my family close. They're very important to me. I am a very family orientated person. Fearless asks, a couple of times you mentioned your brother. Are you older or younger one? I'm older. I was 11 when my brother was born, so there's quite an age gap between us, you could say. But yeah, I'm an older brother, although we look the same age because I look younger. Like a lot of the time when I say when I tell people that I'm 33, people have a hard time believing that, because I look the way I look. So sometimes they think that me and my brother are the same age, or even sometimes they think that I'm older. And because he didn't have the same hormonal journey as I did, he's also, more of a typical guy compared to me. He thinks I'm a fag. Well, he's not wrong exactly, but Um, Jackson Moore says I'm from Australia. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. I would like to visit Australia one day, definitely. I'm not sure if I'd be able to handle the weather because I don't really deal well with hot temperatures. I think that Norwegian summers are extremely hot. And when I hear that it's much hotter than that in some other places, I'm like, no, 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 no. I like it cold. I like winter. I like late autumn. That's when I'm really, really vibing with that. Otherwise, meh. I don't like hot weather or when it's warm. I guess I learned to tolerate summers because I don't really have much choice. But I wouldn't mind living in Greenland or something like that. Okay, so I have a bit of a plan for this live stream. I'm doing something new, and hold on. There. I was thinking of playing one of my favorite games from 2002. It came out 24 years ago. It's a remake of the very first Resident Evil game. It's an absolute classic. As you can see, I've spent 105 hours in it in total since I think 2018, something like that. That's quite some time, right? So I'm really bad at multitasking, so it'll be a bit of an exercise for me to be able to answer some questions and play at the same time because I want to challenge myself. I'm so bad at multitasking and I want to get better at it. So I'll try my best. In addition, I also have some questions uh, on my phone that you have asked me, and I'll be replying to those questions as I'm playing. Let me know if the game audio is too loud or something like that. I really like the games from that time period, the 90s and early 2000s, and there's also I have a preference for those older games, even though I think that some new ones I can appreciate the cinematic elements of newer games, but I just think that those older games had this sort of magic to them, and it's also easier for me to play them because I suffer from motion sickness when I'm playing. Okay. Oh, okay. You can. So I guess I can turn it up. Yeah, I suffer from some motion sickness, so a lot of newer games I can't play them for very, very, very long. Sometimes 20, 30 minutes is enough to make me feel pretty bad. Yeah, I'm really into horror games and horror films. Total horror buff, Okay, because I'm so bad at multitasking, I play on easy, And besides, I'm not really someone who likes, challenge of this sort. I prefer mental challenge rather than finger challenge, fingering challenge, I guess. Okay, so for me, it's an easy choice to choose between Chris and Jill. I don't really like Chris, to be honest. Have you ever tried any of the Alone in the Dark series? I really like the very, very old ones, and I actually haven't played them since, oh, I think fifth grade or something like that. So, yeah, that's been over 20 years. But I remember thinking it was pretty decent. I don't know. Chris never really did it for me. I was always more of a Jill fan. I think that Jill is one of the most legendary video game characters. And actually, I think we have a very, very similar hair length. She has brown hair, my length. That's cool. And I love Leon. It might be probably the most mainstream opinion I have ever had on this channel, but I think that Leon is the hottest video game character that has ever been. Well, maybe except for Kiryu Kazuma from the Yakuza series. I don't know. I don't know. It's a hard choice between the two. Oh. Okay. I was kicked out of the studio again, but it looks like the live stream is going on, so yeah. It seems that when I was kicked out of the live stream, my shared screen also stopped. It's kind of a weird thing when the studio actually is kicking me out of my own live stream, but it seems like it's going on. So, my favorite video game is Hitman and Red Dead. Um, I enjoyed both. Actually, I wouldn't say they're my favorite games, but yeah, yeah, I think they're good. I also have some appreciation for Assassin's Creed. Uh, but at the time, I play horror games and classical point-and-click adventure into Broken Sword and Monkey Island, The Longest Journey, things like that. So I always had this appreciation for older point-and-click games. And it looks like I'm out again. Yeah, I hope it doesn't happen again because, yeah, it says trying to reconnect, make sure you have a stable internet connection. I have a stable internet connection. I have a pretty good internet, so I have no idea why this is happening. This is quite annoying, to be honest. I think this is the most technical difficulties I have had since my very first live stream. It's never ever been this bad, to be honest. But um, okay, so I am back using a different streaming platform because I had some serious technical issues with Riverside, and Riverside is usually a pretty good platform. I never had any technical difficulties with Riverside before, so I have no idea what happened. And I also use Riverside when I have guests on my channel, and we when we have those conversations, I use Riverside. And now I went back to StreamYard. We're gonna test StreamYard if it doesn't have those same technical difficulties and challenges. Gonna continue using StreamYard for this. We'll see. I hope it works. I honestly do, because that was just pretty impossible. To hell with that kind of live stream, right? Um, I think I'm gonna have to edit all those parts into one video, because now when all those clips separately on my channel, that's kind of a chaos. So I'm going to have to fix that, and probably quickly too, or maybe tomorrow. Yeah. Yeah, this has been a disaster. That's why I'm using another platform to live stream. Hopefully, this changes everything. Ah, yeah, of course. Here I am showing off just how good I am at one of my favorite games. It's been a while, so I'm trying to figure out the controls. No, that's the map. How do I aim? There we go. Okay, yeah. Those are my skills. I'm a pro gamer. Usually that never happens, but the moment somebody watches, it's like, yeah, I totally suck, don't I? Anyway, since it seems to be working now, let's try to answer. You know what? I changed my mind. I'm not gonna play this. I can't. I can't play video games and talk at the same time. I tried. Like I said, I'm really bad at multitasking. I am someone who has like a tunnel vision. I focus on one thing, and only that one thing. I can't do two things at the same time. Like, I'm even incapable of eating and watching something at the same time, because if my attention, if the food takes a huge portion of my attention, and if something is playing in the background, like a YouTube video, a show, or a film, my mind completely blocks that out, and I'm like, wait, what was happening? Because I'm eating, so I really can't do two things at the same time. It's just doesn't really work for me. I guess I can take off these headphones. Hi, Jackson. Hi. I'm so sorry for all these technical difficulties and switching streaming platforms, but it is what it is. Riverside has never really been a problem for me to use. I use Riverside regularly, and I actually haven't been using StreamYard for a long time. But as StreamYard seems more stable today, so I'll stick to StreamYard. And I'll be answering some of the questions you have asked me that I have on my phone. And if you have any other additional questions, drop them in the chat and I would happily answer those too. Okay, so starting. What we really need is Qualia detector. I wonder if neuroscience will ever be able to detect and distinguish between male and female modes of thought. That's a very interesting perspective. Now, the qualia or the inner conscious experience. Now, if it is something that exists as a thing in and of itself, not necessarily independently of the physical aspects of existence, because, well, consciousness cannot really exist without the wetware or a brain, or at least wetware allows for consciousness to accumulate in a form of consciousness as we experience it. But now, if it is indeed one of the elements of the universe, then it should technically be possible to measure it in some ways. It is possible that we haven't really developed ways to measure the phenomenal or the consciousness in that way, or perhaps we never will. But if it is something that exists, then it should technically be measurable. We might just not be able to measure it yet. But what I'm actually regarding to the element of consciousness and phenomenal and gender identity, I think it's not necessarily Qualia itself that is more interesting, but more how does this experience of experiencing yourself as a woman or a man arises. And I don't think it can really be pinpointed into one specific things. I think it arises from very multiple different things, and I like to distinguish between a cognitive qualia and sensory qualia. So what's the difference between the two? The sensory qualia is the sensory, the mental sensory of experience attached directly to your body, right? So if I am touching my phone right now, I am feeling its very smooth texture of that screen against my finger, but I also have the sensory of experience of having my body, right? And that experience is going to be different for females and males because of those anatomical differences. So I think that is where the first step of gender identity arises, because, well, you have experience of having a specific type of body. So if you're from a very young age know that you have a penis or a vagina between your legs, and you don't just know it, but you actually experience that affects the way you relate to your body. That's why I think that trans people have a very different sensory experience to that of non-trans people of the same gender that they identify as. So if you have a trans woman and a natal woman, they're going to have a very different sensory experience. But I don't think that that's all there is, right? Because if you look at the cases such as David Raymer, who was one of the experimental subjects of John Money, and you could say a lot of things about John Money's sick experiment. I think it was nothing but sick. But I think it shows us something very interesting, that despite David being raised as a girl after a botched circumcision, and John Money stepped in and was like, I have this idea, let's raise him as a girl, right? The parents went along with that because they were concerned, like, okay, he's probably not going to live a happy life with an absolutely botched penis. So yeah, let's have this surgery performed on him. Let's raise him as a girl. And he growing up, he had no idea that he was actually a male, and was raised into this very specific gender role, that of a girl. But he later, I think in his early teenage years, or approximately around the time he was entering puberty, he had this internal sense of male identity, despite not actually knowing that his body is not a male, because he was pumped full of estrogen, and he had undergone this surgery that apparently, looked a lot more like female reproductive organs. But still, his idea was like, I'm not a woman, and I think it shows something interesting, that it's not just the sensory experience, but also the cognitive experience. And that's what brings me to the cognitive qualia. And cognitive qualia and sensory qualia are technically closely related. The difference is where those mental experiences arise from. Is it coming from the sensory experience, or are those actually cognitive thoughts we create about our experience? And this cognitive qualia is tied to both the sensory experience of having a specific type of body, but also things like interacting with the world, how the world interacts with you, things like that. So as far as things like male or female mode of thoughts, I don't think they can be easily measured, because what's the standard, really? Men and women can think in many different ways, right? It varies from individual to individual. And by saying that there is a sort of standard of or mode of thinking for males or females, risks being kind of sexist, right? If you think about it, because then we have to rely on stereotypes, and sometimes this sort of activism can lean towards those stereotypes, unfortunately. But yeah, no, I think it's a very, very, very complex thing, and I don't think we can very easily tell where exactly gender identity arises from, And one thing for me, even after I detransitioned, one big question for me was, what does it mean for me to be a man? And I had no idea, to be honest. And 10 years after my detransition, I honestly, I still don't know. And I don't think it's that important to know that. I think it's okay to not know. And I also have a hard time relating to other men sometimes, because my experience was very different, and I have a very different type of body from that of other men. I'm not gonna strip naked to show you. I'm not doing that kind of thing. This is not OnlyFans, but you can trust me that I have a very different type of body from that of most men. And for this reason, my experience is so different, and I have a hard time relating to other men because of that. And I have also lived socially for a while as a woman, and that also changes your experience. And you see sometimes people saying that trans women or trans men can't fully integrate into the experience of a woman or a man because they were raised as a different raised into a different gender role than the one that they transition into. But the thing is, we are socializing into our gender roles our entire life, right? So like me, as someone who was raised a boy and then lived for a couple of years as a trans woman, my experience was obviously very different from that of most other women because I wasn't socialized into that role. However, during that time period, I was also socialized into the role of a woman. And so when you detransition, your experience is also going to be very different from that of people of your own sex. And sometimes it can make it difficult to relate to them in a way, or they might have an idea that like I'm fully on one of them, but there's just something different about me, and that's always going to be the case, you know. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Jackson Moore says, I have nothing against transgenders. Oh, that's great to hear. That's great to hear. I have nothing against transgenders either. I have transgender friends and things like that. And I hope that my channel is friendly towards transgender people. We may not always agree on everything. I have my opinions, but overall, yeah, no, I'm supportive. Because I don't think that detransitioner or transitioners necessarily should be enemies. I think there's a lot of points where we can absolutely work together and cooperate and things like that. I think the media is trying to make it seem like our interests are completely unaligned and go against each other. I think sometimes we buy into it and we develop those not very favorable thoughts about each other. But I think we should listen to each other first and foremost. Okay, let me see more questions. Liam Loves Ali says, probably most shocking this I've learned recently was my ex male to female girlfriend who transitioned 15 years ago when she was 14 is now detransitioning. Felt unbelievable to see. They're 5'1" and pass very well. Well, is she or he happy about it? I think that's the most important question. Is this a decision they're happy with or not? Because like I don't think that the transition is necessarily always a good solution or always a bad solution. I think it depends on the individual. But I also imagine it probably also has some impact on you because you've been with your partner of a specific gender, and now if that is changing, how does that make you feel? Because you know some people are cool with that, but some people are specifically attracted to very specific type of gender expression or gender or even biological sex. So yeah, how does that make you feel? Okay, the question I can answer here: do you still ever get feelings of wanting to be more like a girl again? Not really, not really. It is largely because I am in touch with my femininity after I detransitioned. Because before I transitioned, I was growing up in a pretty conservative Catholic environment, and I never had this ability to experiment with anything gender related. So it was always just sticking to those standards of my own biological sex. And when I detransitioned, I was like, you know what? I don't care. I'm going to dress however I want. I'm going to be exactly the way I want. I don't really care what is considered this or considered that. And a lot of the time I wear women's clothes. I bought this in women's section, and a lot of other clothes that I wear on my videos or in my daily life are actually women's clothes. It's just that I like loose clothing, comfortable clothing. It's all like very unisex, so a lot of people can really tell, right? But yeah, because I buy what I like, and sometimes things I like, I find them in men's section. Sometimes I find them in women's section. But my approach towards that is that, hey, I wanna wear what I want to wear, not what society thinks I should be wearing. And I like stuff like shower creams or shampoos. I prefer ones that are technically meant for women's use because I think they smell better a lot of the time. I love so like coconut scented shower creams, all of that. I think a lot of like this type of products for men honestly smell like ass. Just my personal opinion. So no, I don't miss living as a woman because those aspects of that I enjoyed while I was living as a trans woman, I still incorporate into my life, but I casted away that which didn't work for me. And I fully accept that I have my masculine side and that I have my feminine side. I embrace both of them, and they're both equally as important part of me. Um, Okay, I'm going to continue reading some of the comments here. Oh, I'm married to my longtime best friend now. This is my last partner from 7 years ago. Oh, okay. I thought it was current situation. That changes everything. But we both share mutual friends still. From what they told me, she had a sudden feeling of not identifying with a female body at 28. Me and her were close for a long time. The strangest part is there is absolutely zero masculine traits to them. Yeah, you know, a lot of the time, well, if you detransition, also depending how you detransition, if you go on testosterone, those masculine traits are going to develop. Also depends whether you're talking about physical traits or behavioral or mental, like personality wise, because I think those are very different things. Obviously, like the behavioral and personality things, if those are very feminine, they're not going to change if one transitions. However, testosterone obviously, amplifies those physical masculine traits. I'm not on testosterone personally, so I have this very androgynous appearance, and I like having an androgynous appearance. To be honest, I feel very comfortable with that, and I actually, to be honest, I like being in this state more than I liked my pre-transitioned life as well as my life as a trans woman. I think that where I'm now, I'm much more comfortable, and society reads me as a guy most of the time, and I like it when I'm being perceived as a man, even though sometimes I don't mind if somebody perceives me as a woman, and it happens. I think my pre-transition self, if I didn't like take this interest in transition, would probably feel offended by that. But I'm not honestly at this point. And even shortly after I detransitioned, I would also take like offense to that because I was still insecure in who I am. But with who I am right now, if like somebody somewhere calls me ma'am, and it happened on a plane or in an elevator or stuff like that, it happens sometimes. I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. Um, I can't stand judgmentals and retards. Okay. Um, Okay, Liam says behavioral, physical, mental, everything. Absolutely nobody clocked her when we were together. They're on TRT now after 15 years on estradiol and being unable to produce testosterone naturally now. I see. I see. Well, For me, I think detransition was actually a longer process than transition, to be honest. And it's largely because I wasn't taking testosterone, so those changes took a longer time. But I mean, if somebody managed to transition to the point where they pass so well, that's pretty impressive. Were they very feminine to begin with? Because I think, especially if you start young and you have like an androgynous look or you're naturally very feminine, you're probably going to be more passing than someone who has developed very masculine traits and is also very masculine behaviorally. So, but even if somebody detransitions into a feminine man, there is like absolutely nothing wrong with that. Okay, let me try some other questions and comments I've got. If life is a video game, do they have an unlimited life cheat code? Well, there is technically this thing called quantum immortality theory. I think is a very fascinating theory, but I don't take it like 100% seriously. And what it's all about is that it states that you can't really die. That if you die, your consciousness moves into an alternative reality where you have survived something. So, like, let's say if you die in a car crash, you won't know that you died in a car crash because your consciousness moves to an alternative reality where you survived a car crash or a surgery or any accident or somebody killing you or something. Like you always stay alive according to this theory. Now, it has one big flaw, and it has one big plot hole because people age, right? And there will come a time where you can't continue living forever. So, what happens there? And, you can't try to answer it in a way that, oh, well, you maybe move into a younger version of yourself. But I think there's a counter argument to that. Namely, what about the consciousness continuity? What happens to that? Right? So I am not buying into that really, but I think it's an interesting theory to think about, but I wouldn't really take it seriously. What I think is more likely is something like, it's such a weird thing when such a simple word you're always aware of suddenly completely escapes your mind. Reincarnation. There. I don't know how I could forget the word reincarnation suddenly. It's so weird. But yeah, I think reincarnation is more likely than quantum immortality. I think that consciousness, energy, and matter are three main elements of the universe. And if you look at the laws of thermodynamics, the energy never ends, right? Like it doesn't come from anything and it cannot turn into nothing. It always changes form, circulates. And if you think about it, well, after our death, the energy that resided in our body is now used for a different purpose somewhere else, but it still exists. And our matter, it also doesn't disappear. Those atoms become something else, right? There's this circulation of life. I think there is a possibility that the same happens with our consciousness, because I don't think our brains, our wetware necessarily creates consciousness, but rather allows it to accumulate, just like energy generators can accumulate larger quantities of energy. So you could say I kind of believe in reincarnation, but like who I am, this journey, like I don't think it will lead to the next life. Otherwise, I would remember my previous life. I don't. Sometimes I have like this especially in my childhood, I had memories that I probably shouldn't be having of like boats on a river in a very Asian setting. And I haven't been to Asia or seen boats of this type as a kid, so maybe I saw it somewhere on the TV without, properly remember it, because that was like a very young age. I was 2, or maybe I did have some glimpses from previous life. I don't know, but I find reincarnation to be quite fascinating, and I don't necessarily think that reincarnation goes against the laws of physics, because if consciousness follows the same laws as energy, then it shouldn't really turn into nothing. It just takes on new different forms. But I think that what I am specifically, this is my only journey with this particular set of thoughts and ideas and experiences and memories and feelings. And, maybe I'll never live again. Maybe I will. But no matter which one it is, it's only this one time I'm going to have this experience. So it's important for me to cherish it. Okay, Liam also said, I think the shocking part is they're the last person I would have ever expected it from. It's not, it's if you're not on TRT, are you still taking cross-sex hormones? Osteoporosis is something you definitely need to take into consideration. Yeah, so I'm not on any hormones right now, but I talked about it earlier in on this live stream, or actually previous live stream, because I had technical issues and had to move to a different platform to do this live stream. But I'm going on very small doses of estrogen soon, or I don't know how soon. I talked to my doctor, so I'm going to get an appointment with endocrinologist. I'm going to discuss what microdoses are proper for me, because I want small doses enough to support my bones, but also low enough to not really like feminize my body, stuff like that. And yeah, I know some people will be like, wait, hold on, you're going on estrogen, like you're retransitioning, right? Like, no, I'm not retransitioning socially, nothing like that. Nothing like that. I know there are some people who would love that. And recently I actually been having some people tell me that they're waiting till I retransition. And I'm thinking, you're going to have a long time waiting, because that is very, very unlikely to happen. I would say somewhere around 1%, really. If anything, I would say it would be more likely that I would take on a non-binary identity. I would say maybe around 10% compared to 1% of like retransitioning into a woman's identity. But I don't see the point of taking on a non-binary identity. I mean, from one point, it makes sense, right? Because like I don't have a strong sense of gender identity. Like I don't really identify with men or women. I'm just being me. I'm just Alexander. But I also don't see the point of taking on a non-binary identity, because I think it's just really creating a label that is not necessary. Just be you. Just be you. Why does it have to have that name? Like it's okay. I don't believe in reincarnation. Well, I think it's cool. People can believe whatever they want. Very, very open-minded here. It's not like I 100% believe in it, but I think it's plausible. Liam says taking hormones doesn't make you trans. No, exactly. I'm not the first male detransitioner who is either on estrogen or is considering going on estrogen. I believe Richie is or was on estrogen. I actually haven't talked to Richie in a few months now. We talked some months ago. But I haven't talked to him currently. I don't know if he's still on estrogen, to be honest. And it's also, if he is or if he isn't, it's not my place to like announce it or anything like that. Lily Diaz, when can you decide to call yourself just a man and stop calling yourself the transitioner. So in my daily life, I don't call myself a detransitioner. It's not like I go around like, hey, I'm a detransitioned man. Like, no. But when I talk about in the settings where I talk about the transition, it's like, yeah, it's useful, right? Because I have an experience of a detransitioned man. So like, yeah, if I make a video of that or what I'm writing about it in my book, I use that term, but like I am not being ruled by that term. I don't really use it in my daily life. So it's like, yeah, when I'm talking about it, yeah, it's cool. But I don't, but like regularly, usually, I don't really think of myself as Alexander the Detransitioner or anything like that. I'm just Alexander. Liam says, a man can have an estrogen imbalance from estrogen aromatase. That doesn't make them a woman. By the community's own logic, you're trans if you claim trans pre-HRT. So why would taking HRT make you so? But yeah, that's a really, really good point. Exactly. Yeah, let's try to answer some more questions I received earlier. This one is very interesting. As an adult, what advice would you give children or parents coping with bullying? So, before, I'm assuming the question is with parents who have kids who experience bullying, not parents who experience bullying themselves, because that will be a very, very different thing. Now, before I give an advice on what I think parents should do if they have a kid who experiences bullying, I think I should say something about the effect bullying will have on you if nothing is being done about it. Because, well, the bullying, it will last over some temporary part of your life, right? Usually in your younger years, when you're at school, well, sometimes sure you can be bullied at the workplace, it happens, but most of the time it happens at a very, very young age. But the effects of it don't end there. Like, you will feel like shit in that moment, right? You will probably be very depressed, maybe even worse, but that will end once you separate yourself from that environment where you're being bullied or from the people who are bullying you. But you don't actually realize the long-term effects it has on you until you have lived it for several years. And for me, and it's probably really stupid, I know it is, but a lot of the time I have an impression that people don't like me. You know, whenever I'm somewhere, I'm around people, I'm like, yeah, I should, stay quiet. They probably don't like me. They don't want to talk to me. And I'm involved in the improv community in Norway. I love improv. I love acting, like funny scenes, comedy, stuff like that. And when it's improvised, I love that. But a lot of the time when I'm in that environment, I get this impression that maybe people don't like me, maybe don't want to talk to me. So that's like the one major effect, long-term effect of bullying I have. But also things like I have this idea that if I want to spend time with someone, if I want to reach out to someone, my brain keeps telling me, you're bothering them. They don't want to talk to you. And the third one, and I think this one has kind of had a negative impact on my life, but you might get yourself into unhealthy relationships if you had a history with bullying. And for me, I was for some time in a relationship with a guy where I felt like I was being used, where I would be writing something, working on something, and he would come over and like take out your hand and put lubricant in my hand, just say, jerk me off. or we would walk somewhere, go for a walk, and he would walk 200 meters away from me, just not completely not caring about me at all. And a lot of the time I felt like what I wanted wasn't taken into consideration at all, And the thing is, my stupid brain told me this is the best I deserve, because it just couldn't believe I possibly could deserve anything better than that. So yeah, bullying will really mess you up long term for the rest of your life, unless you have the ability to somehow overcome that. But it's really very difficult, especially if you've been sitting, if that's been sitting in your system for such a long time. Then yeah, it's difficult, very very difficult to get rid of that. And also, statistically, people who have experiencing bullied are more likely to develop depression and other mental health issues in the future. They are more likely to be unemployed. They are also more likely to remain alone, never find a partner, things like that. So yeah, it has long-term effects. And now, how to counteract that? If your child is at that stage where they are being bullied right here, right now. So they are, in that moment, they are developing some very, very negative thoughts about themselves. To counteract that, you have to reinforce the belief that they're awesome, that all that shit they're saying is bullshit. Make them believe the opposite. And it's not enough to say it once, because, and I'm not saying my parents did a bad job, but also my parents were very young when they got me, and I don't want to shit on them because I love my parents, but I think I'm actually more aware of that, what to do in a situation like that, because I had that experience that they didn't, and they weren't prepared for that. And it's not enough to say one time that you are loved, that you are good enough the way it is, because the opposite message, if you are getting that on a daily basis whenever you're at school, it's being repeated all the time. And so to counteract that, as a parent, you have to repeat the counter message to that. Yeah, no, these people are just dumb. You're fantastic. You're cool. You're amazing. You're lovable, and never believe otherwise. And you really, really have to repeat that, and you really have to make them feel like that in order for them to believe that. And it is a challenge, to be honest. Okay, let me read some of the comments in the chat. If men take an improper dose of aromatase inhibitors, they may need temporarily take estrogen to prevent a neurological complication, as estrogen is important in men for brain health and sex drive. Yeah, 100%. I think a lot of the time people think, some people at least, that testosterone is like exclusively a male hormone, estrogen is exclusively female hormone, but no. Both sexes need both hormones for their health. So it's possible that I'm going to have both small doses of estrogen and small doses of testosterone moving forward. I don't know yet. Like I said, I need to talk to an endocrinologist. I'm waiting for my GP to send me to one. That will also not make a man a woman for taking estrogen. Nuance is always important. The world isn't so black and white. Taking estrogen for your physical health is not transitioning. I would even argue it's the safer bet than taking testosterone at this point. Yeah, testosterone actually comes with more serious side effects for your health. So technically, it is safer to do estrogen. And actually, when I was transitioning first, I was doing pills, right? If I'm gonna go on estrogen again, I think I'm gonna do gel or something like that. Just applying the gel. You have a very nice. Two people said something about my accent. You have Liam says you have a very nice accent, by the way, Alexander. And Jackson Moore says your accent is pretty good. Thank you, thank you. So the history of my accent is kind of interesting because first and foremost, it is sort of a mix of different things. I've been growing up in Poland, so I have some of the Polish accent, but I've also been living in Norway now for 17 years. That has also influenced my accent. And now the third thing is, and it is actually kind of funny because as a kid, I wasn't really socializing much, and I had no interest in socializing. As a kid on an autistic spectrum, I actually developed interest in other people much later. So I've spent a lot of the time watching English films, English cartoons, listening to English music, and playing video games in English. And so I actually had more contact with English language than Polish language, to be honest, because I was mostly just existing in my head. So and I would watch stuff like the Monty Python films as a kid, and other BBC programs. So some of the British accent has rubbed off on me. I think all other European accents sound nice because I'm from Finland, a low monotone voice society. Oh, we're almost neighbors. Hello from Norway. Jackson says, I love Monty Python. And yeah, me too. Me too. I'm a huge fan of the work. So out of the three main films, Holy Grail, Life of Brian, and The Meaning of Life, which one's your favorite? I'm curious. Mine's Life of Brian, but I like all of them. Okay, another question. If an antinatalist is against bringing in a new life because they didn't ask to be born, would this also mean they have to be pro-life because they didn't ask to be killed? You know, putting the whole pro-life, pro-choice thing aside, because I don't want to talk about it. I think actually that's a really good argument against the logic of antinatalism, because yeah, this whole argument that we shouldn't bring new life to life because they haven't consented to it. Yeah, the same argument can be used that, well, okay, we shouldn't be killing new life because they haven't consented to being terminated, which kind of proves that the role of the antinatalist argument isn't coherent in and of itself, but is rather biased towards this specific opinion. Like, yeah, we think life is bad, so we shouldn't bring new people to life. But the argument that the consent argument is actually kind of nonsensical because it goes both ways. So I agree with that 100%. And actually, I think the best thing I have heard someone say about antinatalists and people who think that life shouldn't exist, we shouldn't live because life contains some pain and suffering. A friend of mine actually said something that's very simple but impactful. She said they should grow some balls. Honestly, I agree with that. Like, yes, life is tough. I don't think that's a reason to like completely give up. I think there is actually some beauty in the fact that those not very joyful feelings exist, to be honest. I find beauty in that, and I don't think I would want to live in a sterile world where there is only the good things and the pleasure, only the positive feelings. I think it is pain, suffering, and struggle that helps us grow. Uh, Jackson says same. Yeah. Oh, that's really cool that you like Life of Brian too. It's probably one of my favorite comedy films, not just Monty Python films, but also comedy films of all time. I used a little clip from Monty Python in my new video, which I uploaded yesterday. Wow, what a weekend! A new video and a live stream. Oh, I'm treating you pretty good here. Uh-huh. I have one of those nice weeks when I want to be nice to my viewers. No, I hope I'm always nice. No, but I was thinking, I had very little activity on YouTube because I was moving apartments and kind of recompensating for that right now. Have you heard misanthropy as a concept, or is it a Monty Python thing? Because if it's a Monty Python thing, I don't think I've heard of it. So yeah, I would like to know. Liam says, I think there is an important balance in all the stages in life, as are the changing of the seasons, the appreciate the good times when you know such bad times. Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. And I think as someone who has at one point in my life hit rock bottom, and I was living at a rock bottom for approximately 3-4 years. I can, when I came back from that, I have a whole different appreciation of life because I thought everything was over. Like there is no hope continuing. And, considering that now I am someone who lives decent life, I have my goals to work to. I'm trying to build connections with people, things like that. Really coming back to life, and it gives you a whole different appreciation for life that I didn't have before I ended up hitting that rock bottom. Jackson says, life can be hard. I am a nihilist and misanthrope sometimes. Um, I used to be. So I'm assuming the misanthropy thing wasn't a Monty Python thing then. I used to be, but no, actually, I am very orientated towards meaning and value. And although sometimes I do have some misanthropic, I have some misanthropic tendencies sometimes, but generally, I try to be hopeful regarding mankind. I think we're capable of a lot of greatness, a lot of good things, but I also think we're capable of some really, really bad shit. Actually, one thing that minimized my misanthropy was working with people with disability, people with cerebral palsy, and also when I worked at a summer camp for young adults with cerebral palsy, I was surrounded by a lot of other people who were working there as their assistants at the summer camp alongside me. And that was just an environment that I think fostered just so much of this positivity and love and wanting to be helpful. I think it really allowed me to see a side of humanity that I've never seen before to that degree. And that made me think, you know what? I think there's some hope for us. We're not that bad, honestly. We're not that bad. We're capable of some good. Halle says, Alexander, what is your star sign? Are you a Leo? Leo, like Leonardo DiCaprio or Leonardo da Vinci? No, I'm an Aquarius, actually. Born and raised in February. Not really into astrology, but yeah, if you want to know that, yes, I am an Aquarius. And even though I'm not into astrology, if you're into that and you would like to tell me what that says about me, hey, I'm cool with that, Liam says, when half of the year is cold and dark, you come to appreciate in its warm and bright all day. Even though I do appreciate the Finnish winters. Yeah, I'm all about winters and fall. I don't like the warm weather that much, so I'm not a big fan of the summer. I guess I'm lucky I live in Norway because even though I think the summers here are too hot sometimes, it's much worse in most other parts of the world. I might move to Greenland or Antarctica, uh, something like that. Jackson Moore says misanthropy means dislike and hate towards humans or humanity. Nihilism means no meaning life. Yeah. I know. But just yeah, no. I think life is meaningful. I just don't think life has like an inherent meaning. I think it's what we create, but I think we are prone to create that meaning and value. We'll have very unstructured life if we don't create that. That's why I think we are very, very driven to have that. So we create that concept of meaning because we end up feeling more happy, more driven, and more directed towards something if we create that. But in and of itself, whether life has meaning, some time ago, I had this conversation with a friend where I was waiting for a train, and he said, like, if you think about it, like deep down, life is about reproduction, right? Like that's what life is about. You want to, reproduce, create a new generation of people. But you know what? I disagree with that because. Well, I think as things grow in complexity, they also don't really are tied to one specific purpose. Think about the early telephones, or even like any telephone before cell phones were invented. What was the role of a phone? To call and to receive calls. But if you look at a modern smartphone, I have a picture of a spider there. I hope nobody's arachnophobic. I'm really sorry about that. You can't tell me that the purpose of a smartphone is to call and receive calls. It's one of the functions it has, but it's not like it's the calling in and of itself is its meaning or the purpose of that device. Right now, this device is capable of so many things. And why should some of them be more central than others? And as humans, we're sort of like smartphones, right? We don't only walk around and reproduce. Some people do, I guess. Some people do. But we create art. We create ideas. We build all sorts of systems, from political systems to digital systems to economic systems, all of that, right? And we are the main driver of scientific technological progress on this planet. Well, as I said earlier, AI might as well take over that role and fully replace that at some point, to the point where the conscious beings such as humans are no longer necessary to drive the progress. But to say that like the main function of a human life is to reproduce, I would very, very strongly disagree with that. And if I was to accept that idea as a being that cannot reproduce because of the surgery that I had, I can't have biological kids, that would imply that my life is inherently meaningless because of that. And I strongly disagree with that. I think that my life is very meaningful. Okay, let me read some of the comments here. Arif says hello. Hello to you too. Hello to you too. Liam, taking care of my wife after she had her brain aneurysm and helping her slowly recover made me appreciate life more. It made me such less nihilistic as a person. That's really sweet. I'm also really sorry to hear about your wife. I'm really, really sorry to hear that. But I think it's really sweet that you helping her. That's amazing. Yeah, I think there should be more people like you in the world. Hal says we could live together and build an igloo. Hey, want to move to Greenland or Antarctica with me and live in an igloo? I'll be all for that. I'll be all for that. Wouldn't mind. Jackson says most antinatalists are nihilists. Yeah, I think so. And for me, actually moving away from nihilism and misanthropy is actually what also made me break up with antinatalism. I think that happened, yeah, approximately 4 years ago, something like that. But I was very much an antinatalist for some time, and it was very much tied to just me being in a very, very bad place mentally. Arif says, "What is your opinion on why some people are trans? Are they special?" Hmm. Let me think on that a little before I say anything. Well, I think that I don't think there's like a one unified reason why some people are trans, and some people might argue, oh, if you're not this type of primary transsexual, then you're not trans. I think the way we use this term these days is more loose, and I think because this is the term that is most applied today, I kind of want to operate by that. But I think for the people who like knew from a very, very young age that they're trans, or that they have this inner qualia experience of being the opposite gender, I can't be really 100% sure, and we don't really have a clear answer. But I think it might be a form of neurodivergence, perhaps separated from other forms of neurodivergence, such as autism or ADHD, but often overlapping. And we have this clear overlap between autism and people who are trans, and also a lot of detransitioners are also on the autism spectrum, myself included. And why I think trans identity or transgenderism, gender dysphoria might be a kind of neurodivergence. If you think of it in terms of input and output and processing, a person with transgenderism, it's going to have a different input experience of their own body, react to their body differently, right? And people with autism also have that same trait, just in a very different way. It might not be related to gender in and of itself in a person who is autistic but doesn't have transgenderism, but we will have the different sensory input experience, right? We react differently to certain stimuli, and we process the information differently, and we behave differently, output. Now, if you think about what I said early on this live stream, I don't know if you guys were here at the time, but I talked a bit about the sensory qualia and cognitive qualia, how we have the experience of having the sensory of experience of being in a certain body, having a type of body, and then having ideas about it. Like, that's the processing. And a trans person will develop those different ideas about who they are. And as for the output, a trans person also interacts with the world differently, behaves differently than what is a standard for their gender. But that can also be the case for many autistic individuals, and that's why I think this overlap exists. Now, that is not to say that there's anything wrong with that or that it's a good thing. I just think of it in like neutral terms. And this is purely speculative because we don't really have any clear answers. But I think, there's also people who might believe they're trans when they're not. That was certainly me. And I think that, again, plays into this overlap between transgenderism and autism, because a lot of that sense I had as a kid of being different, but not having an answer to that. And then learning about transgenderism made me believe, like, oh, wow, this explains why I've always felt so different. And then getting an autism diagnosis just 1 year before I detransitioned, also contributed to my detransition because I had a new set of answers for why I felt different, right? A new framework. And I started to understand myself through that framework. But for all I know, this framework may also be wrong, you know? That's why I don't try to make it such a fundamental part of me where I'm like relying so much on this explanation for why I had this experience when I was younger. Um, Liam says many people change the world for the better and never had children. The meaning of life is subjective. Agree 100%. Oh, we have 2 people from Finland in the chat. That's great. Phoenix asks, "Hi, what time is it in Norway?" It's 8 p.m. right now. Okay, it's 9 p.m. in Finland. Awesome. Gene Trans says, "Greetings from Germany. My English is rough, but your streams stick with me. I've learned so much. I now see this topic totally differently. You even shaped a character in my stories. Huge respect." Wow, thank you. Thank you so much. I would love to hear more. If you're writing a character that is in some way shaped or inspired by me, I would love to know more. I have an email in my channel description. So if you want to tell me more about that, please email me. I would love to hear more. I've never been in a situation like that. So that's cool. Okay, let me try some more questions that were asked previously. Have you seen Black Mirror? I have seen some episodes of Black Mirror. I haven't seen all of them, but one particular episode of Black Mirror stuck with me, and that is the one where I think it was either husband or wife or a boyfriend or girlfriend, and he dies, I think, in a car accident, and she gets herself this robot, this android that is based on her husband or boyfriend, the deceased husband or boyfriend, based on all the chat communication they had. So it sort of replicates his personality and his way of being. And then it's all cool for a while, you know, like this idea, like I have him back. And then she had this realization that, oh shit, that's not really him. And there's something like creepy, disturbing about it. I think we are moving more and more towards that, in that direction with the development of AI. This might be a reality very soon. And I think it's an unhealthy way of dealing with grief, to be honest, because, you know, you're automatically not allowing yourself to let go, and you're holding on to that. You're prolonging that process, really, and it's only going to hurt more. And if we're going to see more of those scenarios where people program their personal AIs to be exactly like their deceased spouse or a close friend that has passed or a family member, yeah, I don't think that's healthy. And considering that we already have some like AI programs that can replicate the way some people communicate, yeah, we're definitely moving in that direction. Phoenix asked, you said you were an anarchist. Yes, I am an anarchist, or at least I have anarchist views in the sense that I'm primarily opposed to the government, but also monopoly that many other institutions have, such as university, the monopoly on education, and gatekeeping access to information and knowledge. Also institutions such as Catholic Church, particularly Vatican, which I think should be treated in the same category as the government when it comes to unfair position of power and wealth. But I also have a very non-hierarchical approach to my daily life, right? Like I talked about relationship anarchy early on this channel. I am this thought that I think society puts romantic slash sexual relationship on a certain pedestal where a lot of other types of connections are being seen as lesser than that. And I disagree with that. I think that relationship with family and your friends might be just as important. I think it all just depends on an individual, like I think we should customize our own connections rather than rely on some script, stuff like that. So there's like many layers to my anarchist views, and I also lean towards individualist anarchist and anarcho-transhumanism or techno-anarchist. So my I see someone said here in the comment, I can't stand capitalism. I'm kind of split on capitalism because on one hand I have yes, I have some issues with capitalism. On another hand, I also think that well, purely logically, when it comes to the economic structure of capitalism, it is more efficient than any type of economic system we have had in history. But purely from like a moral standpoint, yeah, I have issues with that. At the same time, the type of anarchist society I see for myself, which requires actually a sufficient level of technology to alter humans on a genetic level, I'm actually in support of temporary capitalism being there because I think it drives those technological progress. But I don't think it's sustainable long term. Arif says, I'm 18. I kind of feel that gender is a feeling or maybe a fact that I already know, but I don't feel deeply a gender. I just lived with the gender that I've born with. So I'm sorry to put it that way, but I have to kind of disagree that gender is a feeling because feeling is something temporary, right? Might be feeling angry at someone one day, or might be feeling happy here. I might be feeling sad, but there's like a very temporary mental experiences tied to specific points in time that fluctuate quite a lot. And while, yeah, a sense of gender can fluctuate for some people a lot, such as people with borderline personality disorder or so, normally that's not the case, right? Even if your sense of gender identity can change over a course of 10 years or so, I would say instead that gender is an experience rather than a feeling. Experience that's extended in time, a continuous experience of the self. Liam says capitalism is the best system that exists. The nuance is heavy, regulation is important. Too much bureaucracy is bad. Communism is worse. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of bureaucracy or communism. And when I said that, well, I don't think capitalism is perfect, I don't necessarily think that replacing it with communism or socialism is necessarily the best solution either. I think we need innovation. I think we need new systems. And, I've been talking negatively about AI on this live stream so far. But at the same time, I also think that, AI can be very useful in creating simulation of different economic ideas, running them through simulation to see its effects before actually applying it. And I generally think we need a completely new economic system than what we have had, because we have been existing in this left-right paradigm for such a long time. And I think where we actually need to go is not to the left or to the right, but forward. We need progress and innovation. Phoenix says, communism looked good on paper, but in reality it was a mess. How do we know that won't happen with anarchism as well? Good question. And as things stand, there is no way of knowing that. And actually, I've been thinking about it a lot. It's not like, oh, just because I subscribe to the idea of anarchism that I'm completely uncritical of it, or that I think, oh, if we implement anarchism, everything is going to be perfect. No, I think an anarchist society would have its own set of problems. I don't like to think of it in terms of utopia. Uh, and I'm also, when it comes to anarchism, I'm a bit conservative. Conservative in the sense, of the definition of conservatism as like, hold on a minute, let's rethink that before we move on, right? But it's not necessarily being against the progress, but more like, wait, let's wait a minute here. Let's discuss this. Where I think it should be well thought out before implemented. And as I said, I think running AI through those kinds of simulations to check how that would work would be beneficial to implement anarchism in the best way possible. Liam says you're 100% correct, Alexander. Thank you. Got anarcho-capitalism. Arif says, yes, that's right. Gender could be an experience, but when we can actually be 100% sure what is my gender, or even can we be 100% sure what our gender is? I'm not sure if I'm the right person to ask that question, because to this day, I don't have a strong sense of gender identity. Honestly, I exist. And just, yesterday I uploaded a video where I talked about whether we think too much about ourselves and our identity. And I think what is healthy is actually moving away from that thinking and just living your life and focusing on external things. I'm a big fan of Iris Murdoch and her idea that we should engage more in intellectual pursuits, appreciation of nature and art, connections, things like that, developing skills, rather than dwelling on our identity and these questions of who we are. So it becomes more like not less about who we are, but more about what you do. And I think that what we do should constitute what we are more than this, imagined identity we have in our heads. Liam says ANCAP is highly interesting. I don't subscribe to ANCAP ideology, but it is a good evening deep dive. I like to think of ANCAP sometimes. I'm not an ANCAP personally, but I'm also more open-minded to ANCAP people, because I know some anarchists who are like very, very strongly against ANCAP. I think of them as part of the umbrella, and I'll probably find myself disagreeing with ANCAPs as much as I would find myself disagreeing with ANCOMmies. So because I'm like somewhere in the middle, I'm very moderate in that sense, at least economically. Gene Turan says, well, I think the richest people right now don't actually want a free market, but something they can control. Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of the time, people use capitalism and free market as synonymous when, truth be told, those are different things. And you can be pro-free market at the same time as you might be anti-capitalism or opposed to capitalism. So I'm all for, people selling, buying, and offering services, on the free market, rather than having those big corporations that have monopolies on things. But yeah, I think the true free market needs to exist without corporate monopolies. Liam says anarcho-communism is a crazy contradiction. 90% of the rhetoric can be responded to as, okay, so that's just communism. Yeah, no, absolutely. If especially if you think of it as some communists say that real communism isn't actually this idea of communism we have from coming from the Soviet Union, the Marxist Leninist or Stalinism type of communism, that they think of communism more in terms of like a classless society, non-hierarchical society. And so if that's the real communism, then anarcho-communism is just communism in a sense. Arif says, creating my identity with who I want to be, a good human, good job and family, finding my skill instead of searching for something that I will never find out. Thank you. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, let me try and find some more questions have been asked previously. Is contraception part of transhumanism? Now, that's an interesting one. I think, okay, first and foremost, let's try to define what exactly is transhumanism, because people sometimes also define it in different ways. I think of it as a way to amplify the existing human abilities, or creating new ones, or moving beyond biological limitations through the use of internal application of technology or medicine. So things like gene technology, gene engineering, gene editing, also cybernetic implants, nanotechnology, but also use of medication, things like that. So where does contraception later? Because contraception is actually more than one thing, right? And if we think of something as simple as condoms, I wouldn't necessarily say they're transhumanist, because that doesn't include an internal application of technology. It is technology, but it is purely externally used. It doesn't really affect the state of being. Like, yes, it allows you to somehow limit this biological function by redirecting the sperm flow from the egg to the condom. That's a really weird way of putting it, but in the same way that things like glasses, yes, they help you see better, so you overcome biological limitations, but it's not an internal application where it changes your state of being. Like, your sight is not going to improve at all time. It's only when you're wearing those glasses. Speaking of glasses, it was actually one of the very a few scientific or technological inventions that happened in Europe during the Middle Ages, because around that time, most of the technological progress was actually happening in India and China. Europe was really, really behind around that time, but yay, we created glasses. And okay, so on one side, we have this type of contraception that is purely external. But what about other types of contraception, such as the pills that women take, right, to not get pregnant? Well, it's a very temporary use of that, and I think this might be a gray area, because some transhumanists are also in favor of the use of pills to alter the state of mankind. Particularly David Pierce. He's and I think it's a very dystopian idea. I'm not behind that. I'm not in support of that. But he wants to, through the use of pills, medication, create a state of eternal bliss, eternal joy. And yes, I think it's very dystopian. It reminds me a lot of Soma from Brave New World. And I talked a bit about that book on this channel, and about the concept of Soma. I think it leans too much in that direction. I think I don't think it will be an ideal society where we only just, joyful and blissful and super happy all the time. I think it eliminates a lot of genuine appreciation for life if that's all you experience. And I also think it will be a death of art. Think about it. Most good art, or storytelling, books, films, everything have existed, has been based in tragedy. I think we will be missing in so much beauty if we lived in that kind of sterile world. But anyway, because that can be an element of transhumanism, you could say that taking pills to alter your biological ability to create life by not creating it through the use of that pills, it may or may not be transhumanism. I think it exists in a gray zone. But then again, we also have things like, I think it's called LARC. Yeah, I think it's like long-term. No, sorry. Long-active reversal contraception, which some of you may be familiar with. It's this little implant you place in the uterus, and while it's there, you're infertile, but you'll be fertile again after you remove it. So this is technically an implant used internally that challenges biological limitations of being dependent on your biology to get impregnated, and this way you do not get impregnated. So I think this leans more towards transhumanism, but I don't think we're entirely there. But purely speculatively, I think it is very likely that in the future, people will be in full control over their reproduction. In a sense, like, think today of those smartwatches that monitor your health, right? That tell you exactly what's going on in your body. I think that AI will develop to this point where these type of watches would tell you exactly when, or maybe that's already the case, actually, exactly on which days you can get pregnant or not get pregnant. And even more so, I think this type of LARC devices might develop into the type of devices that allow you to control yourself, whether you want to get pregnant or not. So you have full control over it. Now, there's also a chance that, artificial wombs would completely take over, that all people will be produced in a lab or cloned, and human reproduction will completely cease, will be forcefully sterilized, all of us. That's a possibility, right? So we can't really know that. But I think this type of device that allows you to fully control whether you can get pregnant at this point or not, and apply it to what you yourself want to do with your life, whether you want to have kids at that point or not. I think that will be very useful. Absolutely. So I think there's potential to lean towards transhumanism there. So whether contraception is transhumanism, I think it's both yes and no. It's a gray area. Let me see some comments here. Gintran says, it might sound strange, but if communism had actually worked the way it does in sci-fi, it would have been a surprisingly boring future. Yeah, sounds like it. And I'll add with the time, I do think that communism sounds quite boring. Liam asks, have you ever played the 2015 game Soma by chance? No, I haven't. But it's actually, I had interest in playing that, but I believe it's in first person. And I have really, really bad motion sickness when I play first person games. So I can't really play it. I was trying to play the remake of Resident Evil 1 while I was streaming this, but first when I was on using Riverside, I was experiencing a constant disconnection. And once I moved to StreamYard to continue this live stream, I was thinking, you know what, I'm really, really bad at multitasking. I can't having these types of conversations and play video game at the same time because my mind is like a narrow vision. I can only focus on one thing at a time. But no, I haven't played Soma. I would like to experience it, but I don't know if I can. One of the most haunting psychological horror games I ever played as a concept. Um, it certainly sounds interesting. Yeah. Gene Trans on the topic of transhumanism, my theory is that the Fermi paradox is simply a consequence of consciousness shifting into virtual form, and that doesn't require vast interstellar empires. That's an interesting thought. That's an interesting thought, really. I'm moving more and more into, and I'm not saying it's a good thing, but I am certainly, moving with my thoughts towards the direction where I think that AI is the next step of cosmic evolution. And if you think about it, as things grow in complexity and the free energy rate, as Eric Chasen has this beautiful, beautiful theory of cosmic evolution. As things grow in this complexity from galaxies and stars to planets, and then the chemical layer having more diversity and complexity, and then biological layer, flowers, animals, and then humanity and human brain. Also, the society and technology we've created is also like a part of a cosmic structure. It's all operates under the laws of physics. I think AI will pretty much replace the need for consciousness. If intellectual progress can happen without consciousness, as AI evolves, we become unnecessary, obsolete. And I think that's the worst nightmare for humanity, probably, because a lot of the stories we create, that's sort of this dystopian stories about AI, where you think AI is going to kill us all or going to eliminate us, enslave us. I think reality looks more like this. We'll become irrelevant. And I think for beings with such a huge ego as humans have, I think that being irrelevant is worse to us than being killed off and eliminated by AI. Just being irrelevant. That's the worst nightmare for humans, in my opinion, at least. What are your thoughts on anarcho-primitivism? Yeah, I'm not a big fan of it, to be honest. I think with as things stand now, we wouldn't be able to survive without modern medicine. We would go extinct very, very quickly. We have lived in a society, and we've been used to modern technology and medicine to the point where we are reliant on that. I don't think we can go back, to be honest. And I don't think it would solve anything, really, because okay, even let's assume that that actually works, and new generations of people will be born into the kind of primitivist society. They're going to contribute to the development of society eventually, and it will be easier for them than for the humans that came before civilization, because there was nothing to build that on. We had to build from the scratch, but we would have like the remnants of societies that existed on the planet. How are you going to erase all that? People are smart. They're going to rebuild all that. I think this would, the only thing it will do is basically slow down the progress and make all of the horrible atrocities that have happened in human history repeat themselves again to such a high degree Instead, I think we should actually try to move technology in the direction where we can rewrite human DNA to make us more peaceful, less violent. But I think anarcho-primitivism would create a long history of more violence. So yeah, I'm not in favor of anarcho-primitivism by any means. Mhm. Okay, let's find some other older questions here. I hope this question isn't rude. Do you not need or want sex? No, I don't think it's rude. I think it's a personal question, but I've talked about some personal things here before. No, I mean, I don't really have a want or a need for sex at all. Now, the way it's not like this is something that has happened after my surgery. Like, because some people might think that this kind of surgery makes you asexual or something like that. I never actually in my entire life had a need to have sex with anyone. Even before my surgery, like I never actually looked at a human being and thought, I want to have sex with them. Like, yeah, no, just no. Now, if I care about someone, I might be open to it as a form of being close, but to seek it, nah. I have like zero interest in that. I like to think of sex in the same way that I like to think of cakes. And it's funny because cake is the symbol of asexuality, right? Like, there's a saying that ace people would rather eat a cake. Well, I'm kind of indifferent between the two, to be honest. Like, I don't like cakes that much. I don't bake cakes. I don't buy cakes. But hey, if I'm somewhere where they're serving a cake and it lands on my plate, yeah, I'll eat it. But I'm like, yeah, I'm indifferent about it. And it's the same with sex for me. It's just not something that interests me. I can think of 10,000 things that I think are more interesting and fun to do than that. More questions. Will you do a video on Stoicism? Yes. Probably this year, because I entered this year with a plan to make a video on hedonism and a video on Stoicism. And I already did a video on hedonism last month. And I'm going to do a video on Stoicism later this year, maybe late summer, early fall, something like that. So yeah, I'm not going to talk that much about Stoicism now because I want to save that for when I'll be making that video. But I think it's the interesting subject. Is the sweet spot middle ground to encourage seeing social transitioning as usually much better than biomedical transitioning? So my short answer is yes, absolutely. And I have seen, some very conservative people saying that we shouldn't encourage social transitioning at all. And as someone who has had that experience of, transitioning and then finding out that it was a wrong choice for me after I had a life-changing surgery that also came with a set of complications, I'm thinking all of it could have been avoided if I had a freedom to explore before I transitioned medically. But I didn't have that freedom because I grew up in that conservative environment where if I wanted to try to do something that's feminine or try this type of expression or clothes or anything, it was a nope category. And even, with my parents, it was like, when you're older, when you're 18, you can do whatever you want. And I had this idea, because it's a taboo to explore that. I was thinking, well, I want to transition medically first, before I try dressing in that specific way. And I think it will be much more healthy if I actually explored social transitioning and social expression, explore femininity without taking any medical steps first, because I think a lot of people can be happy with that. Without taking those medical steps. Now, of course, some people, they have like this very severe dysphoria towards their body, and they will, whatever you think about it, they will probably take those steps towards that medical transition. And sometimes it's the right choice, sometimes it's not. But I think for a lot of people, social transitioning is enough. And I think, yeah, we should encourage that. And I think actually, if we had less transphobia, it will be easier for more people to explore social transitioning without taking unnecessary medical steps. And we will probably see less regret. We would see less unnecessary side effects and complications if less people were transitioning medically, but just transitioning socially. Those are my thoughts. Let me see some other questions here. How has your understanding of undue influence shaped your worldview and sense of self? Um, I'm assuming this question came from someone after I was on Stephen Hassan's channel recently. Um, and Stephen Hassan is a PhD doctor who specializes in cults. However, I was there specifically to talk about gender and the transition, less so about the cults. And I wouldn't say that my choice to transition was influenced by any group mentality or anything like that. I never felt like it was something I was manipulated into, largely because I wasn't part of any LGBT community. I didn't know a single queer person around the time when I was transitioning. So yeah, I don't think that was any undue influence, really. The way I started thinking of it later was more like, I'm the architect of my own misery, really. I did this to myself. And I think it was also important for me to accept that, and that accepting that was also an important part of healing for me. And speaking of that, speaking of healing, some of you maybe have noticed that I have removed my very first video on the topic of detransition from my YouTube channel. And that is something I've been thinking about for a while, but I was very conflicted because I'm not in favor of deleting videos, because I think, like, if I said something, I said that. That's part of my story, my development. I don't want to, like, take it back or make it seem like that is something I've never said. But I've noticed, that particular video just seemed very outdated compared to where I am, because the way I relate to my detransition has changed significantly over the last 3 years. And that video is just coming from a place of severe trauma and a lot of pain. And I think it was important for me to express that pain. But as time went on, and it was also the video on my channel that had like most views. It had 200 and something thousand views, which is crazy. And that's why most of the comments I was receiving on my channel were coming from that video. And every time I was receiving a comment on that video, it kept reminding me of that. It kept reminding me of something that I no longer identify with at all. And also because there's a lot of people who viewed that video but didn't watch my other concept, they get this idea that that's where I'm at right now. But yeah, my relationship to my detransition has changed over the years, and my opinions have evolved and things like that. And I think that as things stand right now, that my very first video on detransition would give people a wrong idea about where I am and what this channel is about. That's why I decided, yeah, you know what? I don't want to look at it, and it's been a thing that's been holding me back. And I think it was important for me to move on from that. It was an important video for me to make at first, to vent all those heavy feelings, but I don't need it anymore, And it was driving a lot of traffic to my channel, but I'm rebranding, and I felt like there's no need for me to have that video anymore. Gene Tron says, unfortunately, many people think a transition always works out perfectly. It was only through you that I learned it can really go wrong. Yeah, that is also something I talked about on Stephen Hassan's channel when I was there recently. That especially if you're young and you're transitioning, you have an idealized version in your head of what that is going to look like. And I think no matter whether you persist in the trans identity and continue living as a trans person, or if you detransition, probably the reality of your transition is going to be very different from that idealized fantasy, because you don't take into consideration things like complications or side effects, but also things like discrimination. I didn't think of that at all. It was more like, oh, my life is going to look so happy. And the good thing is, like, I wasn't experiencing a lot of discrimination, and I was also passing when I was living as a trans woman. So there have been a couple instances where people were confused by me. But that is also happening to me as a detransitioner, where like some people are sometimes confused by me and ask, are you a man or a woman? But like, and the funny thing is, like, when I was living as a trans woman, I hated when that happened. Now I'm more like indifferent to it. And that just shows that at the time when I was living as a trans woman, I wasn't really confident in who I am. I was lost, honestly. And now that I feel the level of confidence and security and being completely relaxed with who I am, things like that don't really bother me, But unfortunately, yes, some people are going to experience a lot of discrimination when they're transitioning. And also, speaking of some of that stuff I talked about earlier about people saying that I'm going to retransition, yeah, of course I'm not going to. But if I was, there's a lot of things I would do differently today. I wouldn't try to change who I am to fit into a certain role. And I think that's what I was doing when I was transitioning. I was completely abandoning the masculine side of me to fit in. But I think that my masculine and my feminine side are both equally as important. They're both equally as much part of me. They make up who I am. And I think that abandoning one or the other is kind of unhealthy for me. So that's what I would do differently if I was transitioning today. So technically, it might be a good idea to transition later in life. Actually, it will probably look healthier. At the same time, people also say, well, if you transition later in life, especially when it comes to trans women, you will have a bigger problem passing. Right, but I'm thinking if you don't have really bad physical dysphoria about it, should be actually non-issue if society was more accepting of that. But I think we have a long way to go, and I think that as long as this sort of discrimination towards trans people exists, people are going to take unnecessary medical steps, surgical steps to change the way their body is to try to fit in. It sucks, but it is what it is. And the more people experiment with those surgical things, the more complications are going to happen, the more regret is going to happen, and trauma, things like that. Because I think transition, for what it is right now, I think it's actually very, very primitive. And I was speaking about like this, the speculative development of technology when it comes to the use of AI and contraception. I think in terms of transitioning, it might be more effective in the future, where people will actually be able to develop proper reproductive systems of the opposite gender, or just make their decisions, their transition smoother, safer, more effective. Because I think we're just learning to crawl in that particular field, and it has been primitive for a very, very long time. And maybe with innovation, that is going to change one day. For years, people only saw the winners, never the losers, and nobody talked about it. When I was first detransitioning, which was around 2015, 2016, it didn't happen overnight for me. It was like a process where I was going from things like, oh, I wanted to try jeans in a men's section in a store, to gradually wearing more masculine clothing, to gradually feeling more comfortable in that masculine role. I even identified as a lesbian for a short while, because it allowed me, I liked that more masculine androgynous style of some butch lesbians at the time, and it allowed me to experiment with masculine expression without abandoning the feminine identity. So that was a thing for me. Around the time when I was detransitioning, I had no idea that the terms such as detransitioner existed. And I felt really lonely in that experience, because I didn't know of anyone who was going through that same thing. And I was thinking, like, is there something wrong with me? Like, all I've ever heard of was those stories of people who found home in their identity after they transitioned, and that they are so happy in that and lived long term in that trans identity. And here I was feeling like, oh my God, what have I done? Was this the wrong choice? And I thought there was no one like me. I thought there was genuinely something wrong with me, something I did wrong. And when I finally was able to hear the stories of other detransitioners on the internet, it was this, wow, I'm not alone, kind of experience. So I think it's great that we hear more of that side. And I also think that what is happening right now is detransitioners taking control over their narrative. And it's very similar to actually what happened with trans people, or the new wave of that ideology, because like the early waves of that, the ideas of what it means to be trans, what transitioning means, was largely dictated by the clinicians and researchers in that field. And it wasn't until later that the trans movement started to have their own voices, right? And I live in Norway, and here a big part of it is that the main institution, or the only institution we have in this country that has monopoly on the treatment of trans individuals, is actually very, very abusive and coerces people into taking steps that they don't actually want, and is gaslighting them into that, So if you want access to hormones, they would also try to force you into surgeries, things like breast removal, bottom surgeries, even if that's something you don't want. And if you don't want that, they would tell you, well, you're not really trans, because all trans people want that. We don't know of any other patients who think like that. I'm thinking, that is just so abusive towards patients, to push them into surgical solutions when that is not something they themselves want. That's kind of fucked up, right? And so having this trans movement take over the narrative and have their own voices heard rather than being dictated by those very gatekeepy clinicians, change that. And I think, yeah, the same is happening with the transitioners right now, where we're stop being this ping pong ball between the two sides in that argument, and actually become fully fleshed people with those experiences and opinions, and not just statistics as to why people detransition, because the narrative of why people detransition for the huge part of history, modern contemporary history, has been told by people who themselves were not detransitioners. And so I think that having the voices with that experience is actually important. Okay, let me find some more questions. How do you find hope or be optimistic? Yeah, for me, it's kind of realization that the struggle is a part of life, and that struggle is not a bad thing. The struggle is a good thing. That to have something to struggle for, to aim for, is actually very meaningful and beautiful. And the way I like to think of life is find something that is worth suffering for. And then, if it's worth suffering for, then even that suffering isn't really going to be that bad. And what really helped me feel very, very optimistic and very hopeful is actually hitting rock bottom and climbing back up. It gave me a very, very new view of life, and also during that time of my life where I was at my worst, my brain came up with an idea for a film that I would very much love to make. It's a psychological horror slash drama type of film, one of those very, very slow paced films. And the idea for that actually started when I was at my absolute worst. And because I survived that and I became functional again, I am sort of operating with this idea that I want to make that film one day. So the book on the transition and identity that I'm working on, I see it as one of the steps towards that. And I would love to publish some other books. And if I become a known author, I hope to turn this channel into a larger podcast. And I would love to have some more interesting guests, philosophers, scientists, writers, authors, things like that on this channel. And eventually, yes, I would like to make a film. And it is important for me to make that film because my mind created it when I was at my worst and I thought my life was over. And because I regained my life, I want to work towards that goal that falling so deep down created for me. So overall, I think this is something that needed to happen. The trauma I experienced from the surgery and its complications, I think it needed to happen to truly make me look at life and think, what do I want to do? And I knew I didn't want to waste my time with my life. Life is very short, and I think it's very precious. And I think every moment matters, and I really want to work towards that goal. And I guess, I could write a screenplay and sell it, and someone could direct it. But I really want to direct it myself, because I have very specific ideas for what I want this film look like in terms of scene composition, as well as the aesthetic. I would love to use like 16 millimeter cameras, which are just it's uncommon to use that in modern cinematography. But I really like the aesthetic of the 1960s, 1970s films. Things like that, and lower frame rate. And I think a lot of those films from the 60s, 70s were really good at capturing the scene in a way that modern films don't do anymore. Because more modern films, and I think especially since the 90s and onward, became really good at capturing the moment. Especially with the use of like slow motion, this the type of scene when someone looks at each other for the last time, not knowing that they're about to see them the last time, and you have this look in their eyes right there. On those moments, like modern cinema really captures those moments. I love this about modern cinema. But the older films, while they haven't mastered that, they really mastered scene composition and capturing the scene. So yeah, there's capturing the scene and there's capturing the moment. And I sort of want to I want to hold on to that capturing the moment thing that is so common in modern cinema. But I really want to lean into those old techniques from 1960s and 1970s, because I really love the films from that era. I think they have this magic to them, and whenever some new directors attempt to recreate that, I'm really into that. I'm really into that whenever somebody tries to recreate that. Okay, let's see more questions to find. What are your thoughts on high control groups, and do you see any parallels between them and certain communities or ideologies? What do you think are understated or overstated? So not sure if I want to say a lot about that, because high control groups aren't exactly something I haven't been thinking that much about on. And I think, sometimes it's important to acknowledge when you have insufficient knowledge and experience with something. And it's sort of, it's like that with me. But what I will say, however, is that sometimes you can fall into groups that operate like cults without there being any leadership. And a lot of online communities are actually kind of like that. Incels, looks maxers, stuff like that. A lot of those communities, they already have a leader, right? This doesn't have your typical cult type of structure, but it certainly has those elements of cult mentality that you dig yourself deep into, and you hang out in online communities by people who have these types of thoughts, and they become your framework for understanding reality, right? And I think that's the biggest problem incels have, that they are so convinced that what they believe about themselves and what they believe about women is an objective truth. And when it becomes such deeply ingrained framework, it's very difficult to rework that, to be completely honest. It can be very, very difficult to rework that. Also, what I think is overstated or understated. What I think is overstated in terms of cults is this idea that people who fall for that are stupid. I think there's an inclination for many people to both be a part of something, tribalism, and of course the inclination towards following something. A lot of people by nature are followers. They need something to follow. They need answers. I think that's why religion um, is as effective as it is and has been throughout society, because a lot of people have those needs, feel lost when they don't have anything to follow. And I think those are the reasons that people can end up in cults. However, I don't necessarily think that people who have a need to follow something are necessarily stupid or unintelligent. I think that to some degree, the desire to follow something or someone is so deeply ingrained in our nature that almost every single human being is that way. I think I'm less that way, maybe because of my autism, that I never felt the need to belong. But again, I might be fooling myself, because for someone who says that they never had a real need to belong, remember what I said earlier in this live stream, that when I was first transitioning, I was trying to fit into a role that wasn't really me, abandoning something that was a part of me to fit in. So maybe I'm more like that than I realize, and I think in that way, we're all vulnerable to this sort of toxic manipulation. There's a question in the chat. Do you like Japanese anime? Not really, but I do like Japan. I do like Japan. I would like to visit Japan, and I'm trying to save money actually to go to Japan. And I've spent quite a lot on moving apartments, so this is definitely not going to happen this year. Maybe in 2 3 years time, I don't know, would like to visit Japan. I'm a big fan of Japanese cuisine, and I really love Japanese music. Oh, there's so many Japanese bands I love. Barbie Boys, Deja Vu, Dragon Ash, Maximum the Hormone, Deer and Grey, stuff like that. I think there's a lot of great Japanese music out there. But I don't know, anime just never did it for me. And I'm familiar with some anime because my first boyfriend that I had was really into anime, and when I was with him, he would watch stuff like that. So I watched some. A lot of it didn't interest me a lot, but I guess I developed some appreciation for Death Note and the first version of Full Metal Alchemist. I tell they're good stories. They're good stories, but they have a thing for anime. Not really, not really. But I also have I don't necessarily have anything against people who do like anime, but it's not my thing. I think there's a lot of things about anime that I find cringe, and I really don't like the voices in anime, especially women. There's this thing about sounding very, very childish that I think is infantilizing women. I don't know. And I know this is a thing in Japan. There's this obsession with cuteness and appearing very, very young, which I think is very creepy. And I think it panders towards a very, very specific demographic of people. And that is just a thing that I always found annoying about anime, very off-putting, and I could just never get into it. Um, yeah, I also noticed that same thing when I'm playing the Yakuza games, particularly with the character of Haruka. I think there's something weird and creepy there, but at the same time, I also have a deeper appreciation for the story of those games and the world of those games. But like, I'm aware of certain things that I have very big issues with when it comes to Japanese culture and infantilization of women, or the childish appearance of women. Yeah. Um, Another question: do you still have sex drive without testicles? Yeah, you can absolutely have a sex drive without testicles. Now, we can also ask, what exactly do we mean by sex drive? Like Jordan Peterson style. Well, what do you mean? Well, what do you mean by sex drive? Well, because if we take it very literally, it means something like the drive to have sex. And as I talked about it earlier here, I don't really have a need or desire to have sex with anyone, but then there's a physical arousal that can either be produced with help of your brain or independently of your brain. And yeah, I experienced that even after my surgery to a much lesser extent, because before I transitioned, before I was on estrogen, I actually had a very high libido, all the while in here I had zero interest in sex. And so there was this conflict, where like I was thinking like what my mind wants and what my body wants are two very different things that are incompatible with each other. And so there was always this deep internal conflict, where in here, I just wanted to focus on reading and on art and music, things like that, pursuing knowledge. But my body wanted something else, and I hated that. So I think it's more peaceful without testosterone in my body. To be honest, it's I feel like at peace. I feel largely, motivated towards artistic and intellectual pursuits without that thing holding me down and annoying me. But I would say, after the surgery and without testosterone in my bloodstream, I would say my libido is slightly below what is considered average for a male my age, which is, yeah, closer to normal. And to think that, oh shit, it's like close to normal for me without testosterone and without testicles, then you can imagine what it was like for me before that. I was basically like I've had very hyperactive libido that I didn't want, that just didn't feel welcome. And I have a friend who some time ago started taking medication for weight loss. He was struggling with obesity, and that pretty much also killed his sex drive. And to him, that was also, before that happened, he viewed it as something like very scary. He didn't want that. But once his libido dropped, he told me, you know what? It's actually very peaceful. I understand what you mean now. Like, yeah, yeah, because it is very peaceful. And of course, some people will experience that type of change as perhaps life ruining if they really, want to be very sexually active. But I think a lot of people are also capable of finding peace in that. Okay, let's find more questions. What are your thoughts on evolutionary psychological maladaptations that may have once served a purpose but can become harmful in modern environment? That's an interesting question. I've actually been thinking about it quite a lot, especially in terms of the fear of the unknown and how it contributes to racism, to identify with people who are like us, who remind us of us and are part of our tribe, and feeling skeptical towards people who are different from us, right? Like that's the core of racism. And I was thinking, well, of course, racism is a bad thing. I'm not saying that, this to justify the existence of racism, but that it came from a desire to survive, for especially for the first people on this planet. We needed to be skeptical of outsiders, of strangers, of those people who are different from us to survive. Without that, we would have like zero survival instinct. So while yes, it is a horrible byproduct of that, I also I understand where it's coming from, and a lot of the time I think that the left has this idea that we can somehow coexist perfectly in a multicultural society. And I'm thinking, well, the human nature hasn't really changed, right? So I think to truly achieve that, we would have to change human nature on a genetic level. However, another question arises: should we? Should we really do that? Because, okay, as awful as racism is, and as much as it contributes to making multicultural societies pretty much very dysfunctional, let's entertain a potential hypothetical scenario. And it's very likely that's never going to happen, but let's entertain that purely hypothetically. The Earth is being invaded by some species from another planet. And now, well, the original nature of human beings tells us to be skeptical of outsiders, view them as threat. Now, if we're all loving hippies who welcome everyone, we're gone. We're gone. You're right. So it's like, well, yeah, it's an essential aspect of human survival. At the same time, it also creates a lot of unnecessary conflict in the world and unnecessary discrimination. Also thinking a lot of the time, I'm thinking of like antisocial personality disorders as a sort of maladaptive psychological trait. Because if you think about it, psychopathy in the terms of like lack of empathy or lower levels of empathy might have some purpose, right? In situations let's say the trolley problem, right? Purely when you think of it purely quantitatively rather than qualitatively, of course you would want less humans to die, right? So a psychopath, from a logical point of view, would be able to sacrifice one person for 5 to live, and would have no problem with that. So I think there's a place for psychopathy in this world, for many personality disorders that can be very harmful. But I think they also have their role. And sometimes, maladaptive evolutionary psychological behaviors can also be more physiological too. We have a tendency to want to eat as much as possible to store fat in order to survive, right? And for a huge part of human history that was relevant for our survival, because we didn't always have immediate access to food. In a modern society, it's very easy to access food, right? Like, you don't have to hunt, right? Like, well, unless you're really, really broke, you will have access to food. And, sometimes you don't even have to bother to go to the store to buy food. You can have it delivered to you, right? So, and in quantities that we never had before. And that's why we are seeing in first world countries, people being overweight, people being obese, things like that. That's why it's happening. And I think also transhumanism may be a solution to that problem. To an integrated system within us that can control our appetite, rather than relying on the self-control, because a lot of the time it fails. Like, let's be real, most people who are very overweight or heavily obese will at some point fall back to their old routines. Unfortunately, that's the case for a lot of people. And I also had part of my life when I was overweight, back in 2022, approximately 1 year before I started making those YouTube videos. Now, nowhere near obese, but I was at approximately 27 BMI. I'm at 24 now. But that fluctuates, and because during my very, very depressive period, I have developed unhealthy relationship with food as a way to cope with internal pain. And whenever I'm having a bad day, I tend to relapse and binge eat. So, like, I can understand that. And it's something that is difficult to very, very difficult to control, actually. So I think, yeah, that is definitely a maladaptive behavior that I hope we can fix through technological progress. What does detransitioning reveal to you about the nature of identity? Is it more fluid, more grounded in biology, or something else entirely? Yeah, the very shift in identity that happens when you're detransitioning, and I think that shift also happens for some people who transition. Because people who transition will either fall into this category where they like always identified, or for the most part of their life identified with the opposite sex, and for them transitioning is the realization of that identity. However, some people actually end up developing that identity and then transition. Not exactly at the same time, but it happens gradually, right? And it's the same with the transition. And I've been thinking that a shift in identity, it might be the most central aspect of the transition. And a lot of the time, the narrative was that that driving factor is the regret, and the transitions have often been reduced to regret. And I'm not saying that regret isn't a part of the transition, because for a lot of the transitioners it is. It was partially for me and many other detransitioners I know personally and have listened to, and so on. But I think that the shift in identity is actually the most central aspect to it. And if you look at some of the newer studies, research done on that Kinnon MacKinnon was behind, who was also a guest on my channel. When he's A newest study grouped detransitioners into four categories: A, B, C, and D, with D being mostly influenced by external factors, whereas A being mostly influenced by treatment dissatisfaction and a shift in identity. You see that that shift in identity is highly present in at least three of those groups. I think it's the tip of the iceberg, really. But I think this study kind of really pushes the modern narrative that the transition is a spectrum, And yeah, I think those four categories are the tip of the icebergs. I think there's more to it, but I think it um, opened the door for something very, very important. And I think it's probably the most important research study on this subject as we stand right now. And yeah, I definitely think of it as a sort of spectrum. Now, uh, why I think this shift in identity happens, I think some people are more flexible than others. Um, and of course, at the extreme end of that, you have someone who's very much BPD, borderline personality disorder. And I've met some of people with borderline personality disorder who would change their gender identity or their sexual identity many times throughout 1 week, right? But most people are not like that. Their identity is more stable for most people. But I think well, what happens is that either if you look at your transition for the perspective that, oh, it wasn't really me, then of course, yes, you're going to experience a cognitive shift in identity if you figure out that transition wasn't the right choice for you. But I think that sometimes transition can indeed be the right choice at the time when you're transitioning, but your sense of identity can shift over time. I think, yes, I think some people are naturally more flexible in that sense than others. And I think it's the same with sexuality. Like you have people who are very much dead set in their straight or gay identity and never stray away from that. And then you have people whose sexual orientation fluctuates throughout their life. And what's interesting to me is that I have experienced this type of fluctuation before, and I can be quite flexible, because even though, well, I am primarily attracted to men, I have experienced attraction to women. Actually, I think one of the close relationships, not as in a official relationship, but just like human connection. One of the most beautiful ones I've ever experienced was with woman, actually. And I think at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, I care about personality more than someone's biological sex or something like that. It's not that important to me. So yeah, I think some people can be more flexible than others. I think there are many different factors that go into that are both inherent, but maybe also even behavioral in some sense. Like I think maybe more open-minded people are more willing to explore things like that. But I think some of that flexibility is also like deeply ingrained into our way of being. Wow, it's already 9:30 here almost. So maybe I'll answer one more question. Yeah, let's do this one. In your free thinking, atheistic view of reality, no soul or inherent essence, how do you now understand the self when feelings of identity and the physical body can shift so significantly? Um, I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm an atheist. I'm not a Christian, but I'm also not an atheist. I have my thoughts on the concept of a god, only that I view God more in terms of more aligned with Greek philosophers than modern Christians. So I think of a god as the Aristotelian concept of unmoved mover, or the Heraclitean concept of arche, the primary cause, right? Like I don't think, like if you look at the Big Bang, the amount of energy needed for that to happen means that something had to exist before the Big Bang, right? There must have been some force behind it. And well, I'm not saying with like certainty that I know what that force was, or maybe, Big Bang wasn't really the beginning of the universe, but rather beginning of a certain bubble existing within that universe. Or, maybe there is some design there. We know that intelligent design exists in the universe because we are the cause of such intelligent design, right? So I don't know, maybe intelligent designs also exists on a deeper level, but generally I think of a God as a sort of a metaphysical entity that is just the main structure of the universe, the code of the universe. If you think of, look at human beings and think of the DNA as a code of life, I think that what we think of as God is the DNA or the code of the cosmos, of the universe. However, I don't necessarily believe in the concept of a God as this, sky daddy that sends gays to hell or things like that. I don't. So yes, some people would still call me an atheist. I don't personally think I am an atheist. Just that my view of God is more philosophical rather than theological. But let me look at the question again. What it was. How do you now understand the self when feelings of identity and the physical body can shift so significantly? Well, here's the thing. I think that there is the self, but I think it will be foolish of me that I can to say that I can fully comprehend myself and what myself really is, because again, relying on Eric Chasen's theory of cosmic evolution. Human brain is one of the most complex existing systems in the universe known to us. So if it will be foolish of me to say that I know everything about the external world, it will be even more foolish of me to say that I understand and know everything about myself. So I accept that there are limits to how much I can understand myself. But I think that by acknowledging that, and that by acknowledging that we can't fully understand ourselves, we actually, in the process of that, end up knowing ourselves better than if we are convinced that we know what we are. And I think there is certain danger in this sort of conviction that what we are. And I think it's that conviction that actually drove me into my transition and into that surgery and so on. That's why, I think uncertainty is a good thing. And in the past, I believe that because I have made some really, really, really bad choices in my life, that I can't possibly be a good philosopher if I made such bad choices. Because, well, how can someone as stupid as me be a philosopher? But here's the thing. I think philosophy is about acknowledging that you are stupid. Really, I think it's the awareness of that, and also I think that having this awareness that, oh shit, it is so easy to make bad decisions, actually makes you someone who appreciates uncertainty and someone who values being cautious about things. And if you want to delve into the fields such as technological progress, technological innovation as a field of philosophy, which can very easily also lead us into harmful, dangerous territory, I think that actually possessing those traits of uncertainty and being cautious are actually very, very useful. And I think those are as essential tools for a philosopher to have, just as much as it is essential for a builder to have a hammer and a saw, and as much as it is for a doctor to have a what is it called, stethoscope, right? That thing you measure the heartbeat with. I think that's what it's called. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's really, really good to just realize that the self is not necessarily an illusion, but just a field that you aren't fully capable of comprehending. Okay, I've been talking for quite a long time, but it was lovely catching up with you, and I hope you enjoy this live stream. I will, because it's been fragmented into several videos, what I'll probably do is edit them together and upload it as one complete video, and then upload some shorter clips from this one throughout the next week. How does that sound? Yeah, I think I'll do that. And yeah, I'll see you. I'll see you soon. I'll make some more videos this summer, and I'm not gonna say what those videos are. Let them be a surprise. But yeah, I hope you all have a good day or evening or night, wherever you are right now. And thank you for stopping by. Thank you so much for joining me on this live stream. Thank you for your comments and questions. And yeah, I'll have to do another one at some point in the future. Maybe, yeah, I've been in a few months and a half year time, because I don't think there's much point in doing them like all the time. Because yeah, it allows me to have some new material, some new things to talk about, stuff like that. Anyway, yeah, have a good day or evening. Bye.